Alright, so today we're checking out the NewBeeDrone CinemAh frame. So it's a Cinewhip type frame for 3-inch propellers. It came in this bubble wrap flat envelope. These are the main parts here. Everything is very nicely labeled in the bags. So there's really no doubt as to whatever these parts are. You know, M2.5 by 18. M2 by 8 and the number of screws. So all the screws, nuts, and all little parts here are nicely labeled because it can get a little confusing how to build this. The instructions weren't printed in the packaging. You have to actually go to the product page and there's a download link to a PDF file that shows how to put this together. And I'm not going to cover that in this video. I'm just going to go ahead and show you what it looks like after I put it together. But I wanted to show you how it came out of the packaging, and it's, you know, very nicely organized and everything is very nicely labeled. This is the main part of the frame, the top plate that's going to hold everything together. And then you have these vertical braces. So you have these that go forward and backwards and sideways. I'll show you that. I'll show you after I've put this together. Basically, they hold the motors on these little vertical plates here, and so that's why you need a lot of screws and nuts to hold these vertical plates on. It's typical for frames of this type that have a lot of vertical pieces, and this is also in the central area that's going to protect the electronics. So this plate here, so it's going to be a little tricky getting this together, and I will talk about all the little pitfalls when I actually finish building it as to what to watch out for. I think that the difficulty is getting all the parts on, and I think the centerpiece is here that's going to protect the electronics. They probably want to do that last. So yeah, that's what I'm anticipating. So this is what the frame comes with. Over here you have some 3D printed parts. They do have a bunch of 3D printed accessories you can buy as add-ons. So for example, here's the this is a Hero 8 GoPro mount. And they have different ones, I think Hero 9 as well. So this is an accessory you can purchase. I think it's like $10. And then if you want to put a little bit of like bumper protection on this carbon plate, because if you just fly it around indoors without any sort of protection, you can dent walls and stuff like that and leave marks and stuff like that. So one of the 3D printed parts are these little bumpers. So that'll if you hit the corners of the carbon here, you know, for example, this little piece here, that's going to be covered up by that TPU part. And then you have these basically TPU printed like ducts. So the main advantage of a frame like this is it's very light. I mean, it's hard to show you on camera, but yeah, if you just look at the carbon pieces, it's very light. Obviously, all the screws and nuts are going to add more weight, and I'll show you what everything weighs here. But compared to other 3-inch CinemAh frames, this is going to be a little bit lighter. But the other advantage is that because the pieces that are holding the motors on are vertical, there's not going to be any obstruction to the thrust, even though the motors are mounted normally and not inverted. So you get some of the advantages of a pusher setup with the vertical place, because the thrust isn't going to be as obstructed compared to other frames where there's like an arm that's going to be blocking some of that thrust. So that's something to keep in mind of this design. But if you want to go with a duct type of design, they have these 3D printed parts, and it is a duct. There's a curve to it, or like a little bit of a slope here that's going to redirect that thrust and provide a little bit more efficiency. I have no idea how this is going to work, obviously, until I fly it. But that's, I think, what the idea is with these. So you get 4 of these. And, of course, this is also an accessory you can buy if you want to. And then, again, with this being a light frame and the thrust not being as affected, you're going to have less of that Cinewhip type of flight characteristics where it just feels a little bit unnatural and not locked in. This is going to fly more like a 3-inch quad versus a CinemAh. I think that's the sort of the goal of this frame. So let's go ahead and get this together. I'll show you what it looks like fully assembled and how much it weighs, and then we'll talk about what I'm going to be putting into this for the future video in terms of the build. All right, so this is the frame assembled for the most part. I'll explain what I put on and what's not on. Just a quick note on the 3D printed parts. So some of these things you can buy, and some of them are available as STLs. I'm not going to go over every single one as to which is which. If you go to the product page, about halfway down, there'll be some links to where you can either buy the additional parts, like for example, this GoPro mount is definitely for purchase, and some of the other ones are STLs you can download and print for yourself. And yeah, I didn't go through every single one, but yeah, I just want to make that point clear that some are downloadable and some aren't. Okay, so here's the whole frame, and I did put on the little motor bumpers here on the bottom, basically like landing feet, and these little carbon pieces that hold the vertical pieces together. This is where the motors are going to mount right here. These were a little difficult to get in. I did have to shave down the gap there with the file. This is included in case if you have that problem where it won't go in there, you have to file them down a little bit, and so that they're nice and level for the motors. Now, getting these vertical plates in here with the screws is a little tricky. So let's see if I can get the camera to show you what one of these look like. So there's a nut that goes into a little slot there, and then a screw that comes from the top. And getting the nut in here is a bit tedious. So what I did was I actually put my finger on the bottom side and let the gravity hold the nut in the slot, and then I put the screw in through the top and then screwed it in. And obviously there's a lot of them, so it is a bit tedious, as you can see, all these here. So they're calling this these M2 screws. They look like this. They call them cushioned in the instructions. It's basically the tops are a little bit wider than your typical M2 screw, so that they hold the carbon pieces together like that. And so you have all of these, and basically you just follow the instructions as it says in the manual. So yeah, so you do these front to back pieces first. So there's one over here front to back, and then one over here front to back. Put those on first, and then the two pieces that go side to side will go on top. And then they're, it's pretty obvious. So if you put them in backwards, they won't work. So it's like a jigsaw puzzle. And then the last parts are these two vertical plates that go in the center that protect the electronics. And if you look at this here, so this is the front, there's the back. You have these little nubs here. This is for these special 3D printed battery straps. So this will hold a certain size. I'm not exactly sure. They have a couple different ones for smaller and bigger batteries, but I think I'm just going to use the battery strap. You have a battery pad here on the back. So obviously they put the battery in the back to balance the weight of the GoPro here in the front. And you can either use this piece here, and then use like a standard GoPro with like the GoPro two-prong mount. And they go into this these two pieces right here, like so. And then you have to use some M2 standoffs in the print here. Those are also included. You get 4 of them. Or you can get this, you can buy this mount as well. This is for Hero 8, it looks like. And you can put the standoffs in the holes there, and then mount the camera in here like so. And it looks like this mount has an adjustable angle. I think you have 3 different angles to choose from. So this is for the mount in the front. The width here of the camera area is 20 millimeters, so it's, I think they're targeting like the DJI camera if you want to use that. But you can use, there's some included spacers you can use if you want to use a 19 millimeter micro camera instead. All the carbon pieces here are 1.5 millimeters thick, so this top piece is 1.5 millimeters. All the side bracing pieces are 1.5 millimeters. So if you're wondering about that, and in terms of like the stiffness of the frame, it's not super stiff. I mean, you can see it's got a fair amount of flex here. So we'll have to see what it looks like when the motors are in. But yeah, It could be a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on how, I mean, it's not super flexible, but in terms of crashing, the flexibility will help minimize the damages if there's any. But the flexibility also can affect the flight characteristics, so something to be aware of. So there's mounting points here for your electronics on the top plate. So 20 by 20s here on the front and the back. So I think the back here is for like a Vista or something like that. So your 20 by 20 stack is going to go in here, which means that you have to mount your motor wires, where the ones in the back here have to be longer, or you're going to have to use some extenders. So building this in terms of your electronics could be a little tricky, and you're going to have to take these braces off. So there's 3 screws for each of the 2 braces, 2 vertical plates here in the center. It could be possible to get in there and do some soldering and building without taking it apart, but because it is kind of an open air design, but it might be a little bit tricky. So yeah, doing the actual build of this could be a little tricky, but taking those 6 screws out, taking the vertical plates out, and then go ahead and do your build. You should be fine there with, I don't think these outer plates are gonna really get in your way too much. And then mount your motors, your stack, your FPV system, and then put your vertical plates back in, and you should be good to go. Let's see how much it weighs. All right, so we're coming just a little over 64 grams with all the parts that I have in here currently. Obviously, you put in electronics, GoPro mounts, all that stuff. It's going to weigh a lot more. So I don't know what the final build is going to look like yet. That's going to be in the next video. And obviously, we'll try it out with the TPU ducts as well. I think these just kind of press in. Yeah, so the ducts, they just pop in like this. They're just friction fit. And, obviously they're going to alter the thrust a little bit here. I'm not sure if that's going to help or not. I suppose that they designed it so it would, for those of you guys that want the duct design, but of course it adds additional weight. Yeah, so just the 4 little TPU duct pieces are 22 grams. So, you throw that on 64 grams and 22 grams, and now we're coming in at 86 grams with the TPU ducts. All right, so that's going to do it for this video. I'm going to probably do a build with a 2004 motor setup and probably just a regular 20 by 20 stack. I might do a single, like a Zeus 35 on-one flight controller board, possibly. I'm going to have to see what kind of parts I have lying around to put in this, but yeah, it's going to be a little while before I can get around to building these, because I'm really behind on all of my builds. I have a couple of builds in the queue already, so I gotta do those first before I get back to this one. I just wanted to show you guys the frame. You guys can check it out, links in the description. And yeah, I think it'll be a good flyer because it's light and it doesn't have a lot of obstructions for the motor thrust, even though it's not a pusher setup. Alright, it's gonna do it for this video. If any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.